Okie dokie. Hello and welcome to Philosophy Roulette number 221, where I read and review philosophy papers live on Twitch and for the general YouTube audience in the near future. Let me know what you guys, if you have anything you want me to read, take a look at. I have a Discord. Can post that in the chat if you're here. Chat if you're in here. Let's go. So you can talk to me about this. And you can also drop requests and things like that about Minesweeper or about philosophy, because that's kind of what I stream. But I was just streaming a little while ago, and I looked at some Canadian Journal of Philosophy stuff from Mercantness, and I got down to Philosophia. And this one right here, oh wow, look at this. This is only 6 pages long. Let me give him gotta go. Got a lot of work to do, and I slept too much. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here, Bubba Bloop. I appreciate it. So cool. Thank you, Bubba Bloop. So this is closer to the truth. So I grabbed this paper a minute ago, and we're going to read this one, because it was like just too easy to let go right here. So, I got 2 of them open. Swarthmore College. Did I download this yet? I don't know. Download it again. Cool. Oh yeah, let me, if you want to grab the paper, I forgot to do this last time. But yeah, the paper link is, right there. So you can, type !paper, and the link will pop back up, if you so want it to. So, if you want to grab a hold of it. Cool. So, yes, this is called Close to the Truth, a preprint of an article published in Philosophia. So, here we go. I do like me some epistemology, although some of it does get me very, very angry. Knowledge and true belief. So maybe I'll be very grumpy during this stream. I apologize if I get grumpy. We often think or say that someone was wrong about something but almost right about it or close to the truth. This can mean more than one thing. Here I will propose an analysis of the idea of being epistemically close to the truth. This idea plays an important role in our practice of epistemic evaluation and therefore deserves some detailed attention. I will start in section 1 with an exposition of the idea of getting things right by looking at the main forms of reliabilism about true belief and belief acquisition. This is a necessary preparation for the next steps. The focus on reliabilism is justified because almost everyone is a reliabilist in a basic sense. See author. So this is a waiting for the reference, I guess. Section 2 develops a notion of closeness to the truth in 2 steps. Section 3 mentions some ways in which this notion is useful. Okay. Getting things right. Oh yeah, and anyone out there, please feel free to ask me questions. First time reading it too. We're just going to see what is going on here. Granted, it's a 10-page paper that's double-spaced, so hopefully it'll be pretty clear pretty fast. Archaic says, now that I'm thinking about it, the best guess depends on if you care about the chance of getting progress, which is not included in Barthol's solver. Yeah, what's really interesting about Barthol is he says that all the time. I saw him on stream. He's like, the place that they say the best guess is on that solver is not the most informative guess. And so the most informative guess is a different problem. So he's very well aware of it, but like that's why he says, it's the same thing in chess. Computers don't play chess like humans do. And he said he can actually outplay his computer in efficiency. Even as long as it's like he can figure out the probabilities on his own, his efficiency is better than the computer's efficiency. So that's entirely the case. But yeah. But I mean, that's definitely a known issue, and so it'd have to be taken into account eventually. All right. Getting things right. According to a currently much supported view about knowledge, the safety view, see Sosa 99, the safety view, okay, so that's the name of it, a safe true belief that P amounts to knowledge that P. So if you believe it, it's safe if you know it, if it's also to be known. Here's a basic explanation of the safety of a true belief. Belief safety. A true belief that P is safe just in case in all or most close possible worlds in which the subject believes that P, using the same method of belief acquisition as in the actual case, P is the case. So this theory makes use of the notion of closeness, that somehow all the different possibilities that are most likely or closest to like the actual world, it shows up in almost all of them, that if you believe it, it's the case in like 95% of them. And so that makes it it's useful. So close possible worlds means if you believe all the things that could be different about the world, it's usually in the ones that all the things that are different in the smallest way. It's not that. That's still going to hold in all the things that could have been different. Okay. I, for full disclosure, absolutely abhor the notion of close possible worlds. I don't know what actually that means to say something is more likely in all the likely scenarios. Like, I just find that to be an untenable notion. This is what I mean. I apologize for being grumpy, but like, this is one of the things, everyone knows it. They just seem to be perfectly happy about this sort of issue. Okay, continuing. Now, a subject might believe a necessary truth for all the wrong reasons or on the basis of using generally unreliable methods. In order to prevent such a subject from being qualified as a safe believer or that P or a knower that P, many adherents of the safety view add a further condition into belief safety. Method safety. A method used in the acquisition of a true belief that P is safe just in case. Use of the method in all or most close possible worlds leads to true beliefs of the same kind as the belief that P. So it's not just that in all the most likely scenarios that believing P is right, but that the way you went about understanding, the way you went about to get that belief that P is useful in all those worlds. It's a reliable method. So, like, if you think the world is round, which you should, then the way that you came about that, in all the most likely other scenarios that the way the world could be, it would be a good way to find out other knowledge that same way you found out the world was round would be useful to find out other things, like we orbit the sun, in terms of astronomical things. Okay. Tracking or sensitivity theories of knowledge, Dretske and Nozick, antedate safety theories amongst modal forms of reliabilism. Finally, there is also a non-modal probabilistic form of reliabilism. For ease of exposition and without prejudice, we can focus here on the safety version. So much for the basic forms of reliabilism. Okie dokie. Far from the truth, somewhat close and close. Now, what about false beliefs? It seems that, the earth is flat. That is false. Now, what about false beliefs? It seems that, unlike true beliefs, false beliefs can also be either safely or unsafely false, sensitively or non-sensitively false, or reliably or unreliably false. Suppose I'm counting beans. I'm usually pretty good at this thing, but at this time I'm distracted by an explosion and count one bean twice. There are 72, but I count 73. So I acquire a false belief that there are 73 beans in front of me. Have any of you ever counted beans before out in the real world? I don't know how would you even know that you can count beans? I don't know. But I take the author's point. Since I could have easily been right about this, my belief fails to meet a safety condition for false belief. Inverse belief safety. A false belief that P is inversely safe just in case in all or most close possible worlds in which the subject believes that P, using the same method as in the actual case, P is false. Okay, so instead of just looking at when it's true, you also look at all the times when it's false in all those worlds that are close. Perhaps my belief violates this condition. Perhaps there could have been one more bean on the table, but perhaps not. Inverse belief safety is not always easy to apply. It is therefore more plausible and seems more important and relevant here that I fail to meet a certain safety condition for the method used. Yeah, see, once you start trying to figure out all the things that could have gone wrong, and so things that are false, then you get into a lot more complexity. Lots of things could have gone wrong. It couldn't have just been an explosion that maybe a bean broke in half and you were just counting half beans as full beans. All sorts of weird things could happen once you start looking at ways things could break. Once you have to worry about way things could break, then you're in a different, it's a completely different game in some sense. So, okay. Inverse method safety. A method used in the acquisition of a false belief that P is inversely safe just in case use of the method in all or most close possible worlds leads to false beliefs of the same kind as the belief in P. Okay, so this is sort of instead of trying to find out when all of it's false, the method of doing it always leads to the falseness. Okay. In the being case above, I could easily have ended up with a true belief. I was wrong, but not very stably wrong. I failed to meet inverse safety. So yeah, most of the time, that's a reliable way not to be wrong. All this suggests a very preliminary notion of being somewhat, though not too close, to the truth. A subject is reliably close tilde to the truth just in case they violate inverse reliability conditions. Neglecting the differences between the different types of closeness, safety, sensitivity, probabilism, we could simply talk about being close tilde to the truth in whatever specific way. If we can have a good unique metric for modal closeness of worlds or a good unique probabilistic ranking, then we can have a metric for closeness tilde to the truth. Having such a metric would be useful and interesting in many ways. However, the notion of closeness to the truth just proposed is still too weak. Yeah, see, if you could go figure out all the times you were wrong, yeah, there you go. Cool, worked. If you could find out all the times you were wrong, that would be great, but that's not going to happen. Oh well. However, if the notion of closeness to truth is just proposed, it's still too weak. If, for instance, a subject violates any of the above inverse conditions, they might still get things wrong in many cases and get it right in many, but not in almost or nearly almost all cases. Yeah, you can be wrong and then still get it right. Sometimes you can be right, but for the wrong reasons, and only sometimes. And so the idea that you're close, it's not going to work because you don't know where to draw the line between when you have a reliable method of being right or wrong versus when you have a method that's not so good either way. Intuitively, we wouldn't count these as being really close to the truth. Hence, we should strengthen the condition for being close to the truth, or briefly being close, further in the following way. Okay, so we've got safe belief closeness. A false belief that P is safely close just in case in all or most close possible worlds in which the subject believes that P using the same method as the actual case P is true. Okay, so that means if you're doing stuff the world is round and you use that same method, but sometimes you get a false belief out of it, it was close because in almost all the possible worlds, all the close possible worlds, all the ones that are most like our world, you're still doing pretty good in terms of knowledge. Okay, so there's safe belief closeness and safe method closeness. So there's a belief. A method used in the acquisition of a false belief that P is safely close just in case use all in case use of the method in all or most classical worlds leads to true beliefs of the same kind as a belief in P. So yeah, so this is saying the method what I was just saying, and then this one here is using the same. Yeah, so okay, yeah. So method in the actual case is more metaphysical because it's saying the method of actual, and then this one just leads to true beliefs. Okay, so basically either you're doing this more of metaphysics of saying, look, this is just actually the case, so it leads you to the truth, and this one is leading you to better beliefs, depending on how you want to slice things. But either way, it's okay, if you have a method that gets you to mostly true beliefs, or gets you mostly to the way the world is. Okay, let us then take being close to the truth, or just being close, to consist in meeting such conditions. We can leave the question open here which of the above conditions one should choose as the definitive notion of being close to truth. Perhaps each of them has its use in some contexts. The above conditions reformulate the original reliability conditions for the case of a false belief. Yeah. As pointed out above, the notion of being close to the truth plays an important role in epistemic evaluation in general. We can imagine adding a comparative notion of being closer to the truth and putting that to work in comparative epistemic evaluations. Joe was pretty close to the truth, but Mo was even closer. We can also imagine adding a graded notion of being close to the truth and putting that to work in a more fine-grained epistemic evaluation. Joe was very close to the truth. Yeah, so if someone could be more right than someone else, or someone could just be more right overall. like compared to like how the world is in some metaphysical way. Like that's just how things are. There are also some other advantages of having a good idea of closeness. It can help understand an important type of Gettier cases better, namely those in which the subject's belief is based on some false premise. Take, for instance, Gettier's original case about Smith, who justifiably but falsely believes that Joan owns a Ford, and infers from this the true disjunction that either Jones owns a Ford or Brown is in Barcelona, where Smith has no reason to believe the second true disjunct. So for those who don't know, it's like go out there and find Google Gettier problem. There is an online version of it. It is literally 2 pages long, and it is one of the most massively influential papers. And basically what it does is that like you have a good reason to believe that Jones owns a Ford, and you say, well, if Jones owns a Ford, then it's true also that Jones owns a Ford or Brown is in Barcelona. But it turns out Jones' Ford got smashed yesterday, and by dumb luck, Brown actually is in Barcelona. So this second sentence where Joan owns a Ford or Brown is in Barcelona happens to be true, but you thought it was because Jones owned a Ford. So you were right, but for the absolutely wrong reasons. So they're saying that this sort of closeness to the truth is going to help solve this, which is a very famous case. So that makes this a short paper of interest to people who care about these sorts of things. Okay. So I just want to explain why it seems like not a big deal to say, okay, close to the truth, closer world. But why does this matter philosophically? Is because this big issue right here, they get to say something new about it. Okay. No matter whether Smith is close to the truth or not, he doesn't know the disjunction. Interestingly, however, if he had not even been close to the truth of the first disjunct, for instance, if he had just made a wild guess about Jones' Ford ownership, then we would not have considered him to be justified and thus also not Gettiered. Yeah. So in some sense, since he was close to the truth about Jones owning a Ford, because Jones did own a Ford and it just got smashed yesterday, and but he didn't know about that, but it was really close because say there was like in almost every other world, Jones didn't crash his car, and every close world, Jones didn't crash his car yesterday, then so Smith, who believes that Joan owns a car because that is in all the closest worlds, he still owned a car. And so that actually explains why we think this is a good and interesting question. Why, what went wrong when you say something like a Gettier problem? Okay. So thus also not Gettiered, which is a funny statement. So, but like philosophers would understand this. And if you have any questions, please let me know, because the Gettier problem is just one of these big things in contemporary philosophy that people have been arguing about for 50 years, 60 years. It was 1963, I believe, and it just sort of blew up all sorts of things. Edmund Gettier, apparently, he hadn't published anything, and the tenure committee was getting angry with him, so all like the people in the department were like, okay, you got to publish something. So he was like, okay, I'll publish this, and then just like became like super famous just because he had to publish something. Okay, we only do count Smith as justified and in a Gettier case because he was close to the truth, and so this is why it's interesting, because the close to the truth helps explain what is wrong with the Gettier case, because we need to know why Smith was even talking about Jones in the first place. Okay, more precisely, Smith is in a Gettier case because he is method close to the truth, where in a safe, sensitive, or reliabilist way. Yep. This is, however, not the whole picture yet. Consider a type of cases used by some to show that there can be knowledge from falsehood. In Warfield's well-known handout case, a person brings 100 handouts to their talk, counts people in the room, and inadvertently counting one person twice, ends up with the wrong result that there are 53 persons in the room instead of 52. From this falsehood, the person infers that they have sufficient number of handouts with them. Does the person thereby come to know that they have a sufficient number of handouts with them? Supporters of a positive answer face the challenge of explaining how this can be true and why in the typical Gettier cases, inferring a true proposition from a false one does not lead to knowledge. Even if one denies that in cases like Warfield's, the subject can come to know the conclusion, one would still have to explain what the relevant difference between Gettier cases and alleged knowledge from falsehood ones, which are not Gettier cases, is. Yeah, so it's like if you have a because instead of talking about like the actual facts of the world, which in this case the facts don't line up, but if you're talking about the same methods, that they're using a reliable method, then both cases you could say the method was similar. And so that's why these sort of things have a similar feel to them. But I mean, I don't know if that's like super shocking. People were reliabilists. You kind of probably could have guessed that they were using similar reliable methods. This is just sort of formalizing the understanding of what counts as a good reliable method. Okay. Now, one important difference between these two cases is that in the latter case, a less precise method was available to the subject, such that the subject would have arrived at the true conclusion by using that less precise method. For instance, the subject could have made rough but unrisky estimates rather than counted, and reasoned, for instance, in the following way. There are at most 15 people over there, at most 20 over there, and finally certainly not more than 30 people over there. This is still way below the 100, hence I have sufficient number of handouts. In contrast to this, there is no such less precise method available to the subject in Gettier cases involving false premises. This suggests the following characterization of false premise Gettier cases, especially since no other relevant difference is to be noticed here. A justified true belief based upon and dependent on a false premise is Gettiered belief, only if the subject's belief in the false premise is method close to the truth and there was no less precise method available to the subject. Okay, so this is saying, look, you can get Gettiered, but you have to be using the best available information. There can't be some easier way to go that would undermine the original belief. Yeah. We could strengthen the right-hand side of the formula and formulate it by conditional. However, I prefer to leave it open here whether the above already identifies necessary and sufficient conditions. My aim is rather to show that a notion of closeness to the truth can help us also with the understanding of Gettier cases and thus indirectly of knowledge. The above explanation of false lemma cases won't, however, help much with the stopped clock or fake barn cases. These are other famous. You can see how these are not like new things. These are all other famous cases, where it is not clear that any false belief is involved and where the Gettierization is not based on the use of false premises. But as we can see, the idea of closeness to the truth can help with some Gettier cases. More generally, even if a notion of closeness to the truth does not help us with all kinds of problems in epistemology, it can help us with some, and this is close enough. Okay, this is a fun little paper. Again, this is sort of inside baseball, or people don't know what inside baseball is because you don't play baseball. It's sort of like, talking about, like I said, this Gettier case. This is why this is getting published, is because it's so important in like contemporary epistemology that like everything is based off of like this problem that Gettier wrote. That the idea that you can say something that simplifies a bunch of Gettier cases down to one problem is like super helpful in philosophy. So if you can, that's what this paper is. This is kind of a simplification paper. It shows you that a class of Gettier cases can be treated same, even though, as they noted, it looks like some of the cases are significantly different. So if you can reduce a problem of complexity, you've made philosophical progress. And that's why this is a nice paper that got published in Philosophia, because it looks like they've been able to reduce a large number of Gettier cases to one single sort of problem, what it is to be closer to the truth. Now, this does not solve my problem with it. I have no idea what closeness is. And so for me, it's kind of like simplifying the problem, but it's when I mentioned this the other day, like a few streams ago when we were talking about does quantum physics help with free will? And the person did, what was it? Obscurum per obscurus, where it's saying you're trying to solve one obscure problem with an even more obscure problem. And my favorite fallacy is ignotum per gnosis, which is you're appealing to ignorance, your ignorance to explain something else you're ignorant about. I am ignorant about what it is to be a close world. I don't know what that means. And so trying to reduce the Gettier problem to show closeness of worlds is basically ignotum per gnosis, or this obscurum version, where you're looking at something you already think is obscure, and then you're trying to use some other obscure thing to explain it, but you didn't know to begin with what was going on. So what does that mean? I don't know what that means. But I find it obscure, the closeness of worlds, and then to use the idea of closeness of worlds to then reduce the Gettier problem. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but that's like my big problem with like the closeness of worlds. Again, this is my problem, not the general problem, because almost everyone in like this area is okay with close possible worlds, and everyone I've talked to about it, they're just like, yeah, it's a problem. It's like, what are you gonna do? It's just kind of the best we can do at the moment. So it's not a problem with the is my problem with philosophy. It's not and maybe it's gonna be a big problem. Maybe it'll just fade off. I don't know. But you know what? It was a fun little paper. I'm happy I read it. I hope you guys liked it. But hey, give me some questions if you got. I would be happy to explain about this. Again, this is what it is doing, is simplifying. In terms of the writing style here, it's setting up a problem and then shows how that problem is simplifying a bigger problem, which is the massive amount of Gettier cases that have popped up in the literature to show the problems of knowledge. So yeah. Thank you, Kuda. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I mean, we're talking 10 pages double spaced, cutesy little thing. You don't have to, if you're going to write a short paper like this, you don't have to, make like great waves in philosophy. You just have to have a nice little point. And that's kind of what this Peter Baumann, I assume is a guy, is doing here. It's a little bit of a simplification to maybe give people a way to think about one of these big problems in a bit easier way. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'm happy you liked it, Marshall. Yeah, and like I said, if anyone out there, you can go search. Let me go try and do it real quick. Where is it? Okay. Well, if you just Google if you guys Google this, I just switched over to Firefox. Let me show you. If it's justified true belief knowledge, that's the here. Let's see if this one pops up. This is the JSTOR link. Whatever. Let's not bother with that. Here is a PDF of it. The thing that Wittgenstein said about language, I don't remember exactly what Wittgenstein said. I don't think he said this exactly, but this is a classic thing. He says you have to what you can't speak about, you have to pass over in silence. But he had an interesting version of like metaphysics at that point, where he was like literally you can't speak about it. I'm saying it's more of a fallacy. It's more of brain. It's like a crappy way to argue. It doesn't mean you can't speak about it. It just means it's something that's obscure or you're ignorant of it. Not that there's a metaphysical block or like a metaphysical impossibility about speaking about it. There used to be a straight up link to just like the text of it. But yeah, so if you guys Google that, you can get this link right here to Brandon Feidelson, who... Oh, sorry about that. Actually, no, is that it? Yeah, here we go. Brendan Feidelson, excuse me. Wrong link, this one. And so here we go. This is basically it. And you can see it's 3 pages, and it's like, this is a big font. So it's like, this ain't long. So I suggest you all, if you're interested in this stuff, you take a look just on general principle of knowing what is going on in the world of epistemology, because you kind of will have to know this at some point. Edmund Gettier is a professor emeritus at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. This short piece, published in 1963, seemed to many decisively to refute an otherwise attractive analysis of knowledge. It's stimulated a renewed effort, still ongoing, to clarify exactly what knowledge comprises. And so, yeah, massive, like since 63, and there's been basically still ongoing. You can't really, if you're going to do any sort of epistemology nowadays, you have to at least have some idea what's going on in this paper. And so people have been writing papers about this ever since. And that's one of them here. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that little paper. I mean, I, again, have philosophical issues with closeness of worlds, but that's more of a general problem, not problem of this paper, because like I said, it's a accepted sort of thing nowadays. For better or worse. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. And other than that, I did a little paper earlier. This will be up on YouTube eventually. I did some Minesweeper in between, and then this one. So that's about it for me now. Everyone have a good day. Stay safe out there. If you're in the northeast of the U.S., stay warm and dry. I hope you are safe. Because, yeah, we're basically blizzard level snowstorm right now. Okay, and thank you all for being here. I guess that's it.